Hello, Bears. Hope you're doing well this Friday evening. I'm just going to finish up the presentations that we did not finish while we were at our first weekend of Wood Badge. Real quick, I'm just going to go over the what are you most afraid of? We didn't quite finish that, so I just wanted to give you the order, just in case you were curious. The order that, when asked from Americans, what would you put in list of order from 1 to 14? So number 1 being the highest of what people are most afraid of. Number 1 is speaking in front of a group. Surprise! I'm not sure if everybody knew that or not, but that is the number 1 fear. Number 2 is heights. Number 3 is financial problems. Number 4 is sickness. 5 is deep water. 6 is loneliness. 7 is insects and bugs. 8 is darkness. 9 is death. 10 is dogs. 11 is elevators. 12 flying. 13 escalators. And 14 driving in a car. We do that every day, so most people aren't too afraid of that. So then we're going to go right into the rest of the presentation for communication. So we finished with the tarantula story, and is this an effective form of communication? So we're going to go back into communication. We're going to go into the 3 parts of communication. So Aristotle broke it down into 3 parts, which is the message, the sender, and the receiver. I don't know if you can see that too well. I think with the video it might not come out very clear, but hopefully you can see it a little bit. So that was over 2,000 years ago, and it's still true today, and it applies for all forms of communication: spoken, written, music even, film, even pantomime. All right. So in a way, Aristotle's theory applied this morning, well, not this morning, but the other weekend for the Zulu toss game. So think of the balls as the messages. That's the one where we had the tennis balls and we were throwing them back and forth. So the game had senders who were trying to toss their message to others, the receivers. So when the youth do their trainings, they refer to this acronym as MASER, for message, sender, and receiver. Okay, so effective listening as a communication tool. Good communication begins with good listening, right? Both on the part of the receiver and the sender. In listening to learn, we discuss the importance of paying attention to what others are saying and their body language. So actually paying attention to what's going on with their tone of voice, their hands, their eyes, their body language. The most effective communication provides what the listeners need in a manner that engages them. So how do we engage scouts? How do we get them to actually listen? Songs, activities, food, right? Coming for the cake and the pizza. And then whether or not it's interesting. All right. So this, I'm just showing this picture for engaging the scouts. Obviously there's fire and food involved, so they're probably interested, wanting the yummy s'mores, all that good stuff. All right, so communication then is a two-way process. So both the sender and the receiver have responsibilities to make it happen. And feedback from the receiver helps guide the sender. Okay, so say that I said this to you before my presentation. I want this presentation to be a success, and if it doesn't seem to be going well, can you let me know? If it's not working, let's do something and make it better. So when I ask you that question, how does it make you feel as a listener? Does it make you feel included? Does it make you feel uncomfortable? More engaged? Possibly. Have you ever been asked that question? If a teacher or an employer or anybody else conveying information to you, has anyone ever asked you that question? Probably not, right? So most of the time as speakers, teachers, scout leaders, etc., we have a preconceived notion of how we will be heard. And we're just going to push through no matter what. We just want to get to this information. We're going to just give it. We're not going to pay attention to maybe what's going on in our audience. We're just going to get it out there and go through it. So in communication, the most important question would be, what do you want? We want knowledge. Maybe we want to learn a skill, or maybe we want to understand something. A speaker may not actually verbalize that question, but having it in mind will actually help us be more effective with getting our message across. And it will help the receiver to be more responsive. So then you will actually have more open dialogue and have the chance to communicate better. That's just showing teamwork. So by working together, you get more out of it, right? Instead of just a one-way street. All right. So what do you want? That may be an unusual question for speakers to ask adults. Think of how rare it is for us to ask young people. So often we are sure what is best for them that we just forge ahead without taking notice of our audience, our scouts in the unit, our young people in our lives. So effective communication must be two ways. If we don't know what the other people want, there is little chance that we can actually provide the information they need. So we're going to go into feedback. So how do we get feedback? We teach our youth to use an assessment tool for feedback called the SSC. And we use it, I think, a little bit in the first weekend of Wood Badge. So it stands for Start, Stop, and Continue. So this allows people to collect information in a non-threatening manner. It begins with a simple question of what would we start doing that we're currently not doing? And then what should we stop doing? And then it ends on the positive. So we always want to end on the positive. What should we continue? We want to have that in the forefront of our mind when we end something, is something positive. All right, so barriers to effective communication. So what can be some barriers to effectively communicate? We could have a lack of common ground, a lack of sincerity, a lack of authority, lack of clarity, poor presentation skills. It could be a really interesting topic, but if the person is not presenting it well or with passion, etc., then it's probably going to be kind of boring. Lack of receptiveness, environment, right? So we've all had calls from telemarketers, right? And how do we feel when we get those calls? We probably feel a lot of these barriers, right? They have no common ground with us. We definitely don't feel that they're sincere. They may or may not have an authority on the product. Who knows? They're probably not very clear. We're not receptive. The presentation skills are horrible. They're probably interrupting our dinner or family time, and it's just on the phone. They just want to get information. They just want to sell you something. So your environment. So even with all these drawbacks, we still get telemarketing calls, right? Companies still invest millions of dollars in having these calls made. So imagine what we could do if that communication tool was actually effective. Okay, so ways to assure good communication, So you want to have a common ground, right? So one of the points of the question game that we played Friday night, asking the questions, was to get to know each other and to form somewhat of a common ground. All right, another one for good communication is sincerity. So we want to be sincere in our message. The speaker must care about the message. Otherwise, there's no point in passing it along. And authority, that just means the speaker should know what they're talking about. But there might be times when the speaker doesn't always know what they're talking about, and this can actually occur a lot in Scouts. But that's okay, because if we as leaders don't necessarily know something, it's a good opportunity to learn with our Scouts. So if you're going to go look at the stars, maybe you don't know anything about astronomy. You can bring out a star map, you can go out and you could learn together. And that's a great way for the Scouts to see that you will always be learning at every stage in your life. All right, another way to assure good communication is clarity. So you don't want to ever hide the truth. You want to be clear. If you don't know something, that's okay. You want to tell them, I don't know the answer to that. Let's go look it up. Effective communication and the teaching of skills. So an important use of effective communication is the teaching of skills, and Scout leaders do this all the time. Supervisors, coworkers, community volunteers, Pretty much everybody is called upon to teach something to someone, right? So the other weekend for Wood Badge, we learned to tie a woggle, right? I don't know if some of us learned, we already knew how. But the process was hands-on, and what did we do to show you that process? We had a finished woggle to show you the end product. There was a handout with diagrams. There was a leader demonstration. And of course, we used the EDGE method. As you can see, EDGE there. So teaching a skill involves 4 very clear steps. First, you explain, demonstrate the skill, and you guide the others to do the skill, providing ongoing feedback, so guiding and helping, maybe verbally leading them through it as they're doing it. And then fourth, you enable others to use that skill, providing them time, materials, and the opportunity to use the skill. So of course, that is our famous EDGE method. All right, so summary is just communication is a tool of leadership. Communication is essential to effective teams. Communication happens on the common ground. Communication should be clear and concise. The sender and the receiver consider each other, two-way street, right? Communication is written, verbal, and nonverbal. All right, and then feedback is a gift. So I think this one says, yeah, be the kind of leader you want to follow. So lead by example. If you would follow yourself, if you feel that you're a good example, then you're doing good. And we can always improve. We don't have to be perfect. We can always improve our skill set, right? So great leaders are great communicators. Voila! I don't know how easy that is to see. I'm excited to see you all next Sunday, the 29th. I hope you're working on your patrol projects. It is time consuming, and I know it's worth all the effort. So I'm excited to see you, and I hope you are excited to continue on with Wood Badge and have an amazing time. Thanks, Bears.